At last the work of generations is complete. The great error is corrected. The day of victory is at hand. The day of revenge. The day of the Sith.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
거짓말입니다. 이건 모함이에요.
With the political divide being ever more turbulent and policies that are of utmost concern being rolled up by the constant red tape, now has never been a better time than ever for a supreme leader that maintains such power to use his executive authority and enact the policies that are required to ensure
for a safe and secure society.
And who better than the Senate himself?
I am the Senate.
When observing our beloved politician that somehow survived an attempted coup on his life, Hasbro seems to have differed vastly from the scrawny carb-free diet look that was associated with him in his Return of the Jedi look. The Revenge of the Sith version here seems to be a gym bro in comparison, as the pale white skin, the numerous electric fried wrinkles that are usually associated with oven roasted rotary sources of protein, the carved in and focused dark side marinated eyes, and the broad and thick jawline that gives the xenomorph a run for his money, all culminating in a face that to the gullible is that of an innocent looking senior citizen eligible for disabled blocking, but to those who've seen blood before, is the sinister face that makes the xenomorph look like a saint in comparison. But the differentiations don't end here, as the newly appointed Emperor is also equipped with the over-the-shoulder torso wear that, with a dark brown tone, not only act as additional drip, but also act to conceal Palpatine's scrawny, protein-deficient shoulders that makes even the likes of an A minor look like King Kong. This is not mentioning the wristwear, as rather than the oversized and spacious wristwear seen on the Return of the Jedi iteration that is reminiscent of the traditional Asian wear, the current iteration retains a tight and neat style that, similar to the modern day suit, provides a more tidy drip and is more in line with Palpatine's political background.
Making the mother of all omelets here, Jack. Can't fret over every egg.
But for the rest of the drip, it's more or less a carbon copy of the original release, from the coat-like opening at the center that reaches down to the feet to the various stitches located throughout the robe, making it consistent with Palpatine's choice of Sith Lord drip, an aspect that would rub off to his newly Christian, extra crispy, apprentice. When it comes to the Americanized action figures, they're usually just a single figure with an accessory here and there, in which makes the standards of potential buyers at an all-time low, and Palpatine here more or less adheres to such traditions, in which the accompanying accessories, while definitely not the daily US Army arsenal as seen by the Japanese contemporaries, and I can say for sure that's more than what South Korean infantry fire in their 2 years of mandatory service.
What the fuck?
Now, when Palpatine is pushed into a corner and the subject of treason, rather than saving their own ass to avoid further bloodshed like a wimp, good old Palps goes out like a man and instead is the instigator of such bloodshed, all thanks to this titular weapon here. And taking a good look at the titular melee weapon, rather than the dynamic and somewhat complicated design seen in the hands of the younger generation, Palpatine has a simple but elegant handle that, with the dynamic curves and golden edges placed throughout, is reminiscent of the old Republic design and signifies that the Senate is more boomer and less millennial.
For a safe and secure society.
This is not mentioning the crimson red blade that, unlike those seen on his apprentice or his associates, it's shorter in length, as Palps isn't trying to compensate for something and instead shows that technique is what truly matters.
Wait, that sounded wrong.
But what differentiates Darth Sidious from the rest of the Sith roster is that rather than relying on the blade for his main offense, Mr. I Love Democracy here instead goes full on And just like the Return of the Jedi version that came with such mode of attack, the version here is also accompanied with such set. So by removing the out-of-the-box hands with these 220 volt ones, you can portray Palps when he's dealing with illegal immigrants or when he's thrust against a fellow senior citizen. And taking a good look at the titular set, rather than the opaque set accompanying the Return of the Jedi version that, due to the technological limitations, couldn't go all out, in which the opaque paint job is screen accurate, the Revenge of the Sith iteration, where ILM and George Lucas's imagination could go all out, this time around composed the Force Lightning in a darker but translucent blue plastic paint job that not only makes it 10 times cooler, but when placed to a light source, makes the already intense lightning much more dynamic. Just don't place a Mary Sue with a lightsaber nearby, as dear old Palps has a tendency to fry himself extra crispy when near such opponents. And more the merrier.
Let your death be the final word in the story of rebellion.
You are nothing. A scavenger girl is no match for the power in me. I am all the Sith.
我が神明はジャンヌ・ダルク、弓の自転テルゼルです。
But just a shame that the Return of the Jedi one is incompatible with this version, and vice versa. Now, as a scrawny old man that is eligible for a senior pension, your average viewer might not think too highly of this man's height, but you have to take into consideration this senior citizen, rather than your typical anime or Japanese high schooler, is a Caucasian male, so there is a definite buff there. And most of my audience aren't your average viewers, and instead, special batch, in which Palp stands a pretty impressive 15 centimeters or 6 inches tall, making him taller than your average anime waifu and only a midget next to organisms with biomechanical components. Here's Palpatine next to Gunpla, Kaijus, Figma, and fellow Star Wars characters. Now, if you've been watching this channel, you'll know that I have a peculiar fondness for products made in the East. May it be the world-ending kaijus, bioengineered organisms, to underage minors. But breaking away from such traditions, it is surely refreshing to lay my hands on a Western figure, as with the competition, companies like Mezco and Hasbro kept on pushing the standards that are usually associated with action figures, so that they could replicate their on-screen appearance. And while I can't say that Hasbro's ingenuity matches those of Figma or the SH Figuarts line, they're still capable of pulling off the basic movements that the human physiology can pull off, and far better than those seen on their kaiju contemporaries. The head movement due to the hood is non-existent, the torso can move up and down, side to side, the shoulders barely move up, the arms can freely move front and back, the elbows bend roughly 90 degrees, run-of-the-mill hand movement due to the choice and drip, the legs can hardly move, rudimentary feet movement, and no toe bend. So regarding posability, while Palpatine is nothing to run home about, and more or less identical to his Return of the Jedi counterpart, he is capable of replicating the basic movements that the human physiology is able to pull off. But if you wanted something more than human, did you really expect anything else at that price? So, what do I think about Hasbro's latest iteration of the Dark Lord? While my love for Japanese figures is strong, I can't deny the love and artistry that was involved in faithfully recreating the beloved Sith Lord, especially at that price. This is not mentioning the various rich materials that were used, the accompanying accessories that, while not many, does add to Palpatine's play factor and an innately buffed Caucasian build that puts even younger Asian youth to shame. Any downside I have with this aging Chancellor is the limited range of posability, but considering this is an American figure,
Fuck American pride! Fuck the media!
and oh so cheap in Japanese standards price, I really have no complaints.
You may dispense with the pleasantries, Commander.
I would highly recommend this senior citizen to anyone who has an interest in silver foxes, psychopaths, or those who are sick of modern day politicians and desire a strong and focused leader with core principle values. In doing so, I'm gonna give the newly anointed Emperor Palpatine a ranking of an A+.